My husband sold my house. The day I found out my husband had sold my house, I thought it had to be some kind of mistake. I was standing in my kitchen, sipping coffee before heading to work, when a man in a gray suit knocked on my front door. Behind him stood a young couple smiling politely, holding a folder. "Good morning," the man said. "We're here to inspect the property before the transfer next week." I frowned. "Transfer? I think you have the wrong address." He glanced at the paperwork. "No, ma'am. This is 148 Willow Lane, correct? The sale closed yesterday." My heart skipped. "What sale?" The young couple exchanged awkward looks. The previous owner, David Collins, sold the property. I laughed nervously. "My husband can't sell this house. It belongs to me." The smile disappeared from the realtor's face. "I'm sorry." According to county records, Mr. Collins signed all the paperwork. As they walked away, I felt my knees weaken. There had to be a mistake. There simply had to be. 3 years earlier, my grandmother had passed away, leaving me the beautiful two-story house where she'd raised me. Every memory of my childhood lived inside those walls, the old oak staircase, the fireplace where we roasted marshmallows during winter, and the garden she spent decades tending. Before she died, she held my hand and whispered, "Promise me this house always stays in our family." I promise. When I inherited it, I kept it solely in my name. The deed clearly listed me as the only owner. Or so I believed. David and I had been married for 6 years. At first, he was thoughtful, charming, and supportive. But over time, little things changed. He started making financial decisions without asking me. He opened credit cards. Bought expensive gadgets. Invested in businesses that never succeeded. Whenever I questioned him, he'd smile confidently. "Relax, babe. I know what I'm doing." Eventually, I stopped arguing. I handled the bills. He handled excuses. That evening I confronted him. He walked through the front door carrying takeout food like it was any normal Tuesday. "We need to talk." He froze. "About what?" I held up the realtor's business card. "Why are strangers claiming you sold my house?" For one brief second, panic flashed across his face. Then he sighed. "I was going to tell you." "You were what?" "We needed the money." My stomach twisted. "What money?" "I had debts." "How much?" He looked away. $420,000. The room spun. "How could you owe that much?" "My investments failed." "You sold my house without asking?" "It was our house." "No." I pointed toward the family photos. "My grandmother left this house to me." "We're married," he snapped. "What's yours is mine." I stared at him in disbelief. "You forged my signature, didn't you?" Silence. That silence answered everything. The next morning I hired an attorney. Her name was Rebecca Harris. She listened quietly as I explained everything. When I finished, she folded her hands. "Do you still have the original inheritance documents?" "Yes." "The deed?" "Yes." "Excellent." She smiled slightly. "If what you're telling me is accurate, your husband is in very serious legal trouble." I finally exhaled. "So he couldn't legally sell it?" "Not without your signature." "What if he forged it?" Rebecca looked directly into my eyes. "Then we're talking about fraud." The investigation moved quickly. The signatures on the sale documents were compared with dozens of my authentic signatures. Within days, the handwriting expert reached a conclusion. The signatures weren't mine. They had been expertly copied. But they were fake. David had forged every page. The buyers were devastated. They'd spent months searching for their dream home. Now they learned the sale might be invalid. I felt terrible for them. They were innocent victims. Just like me. Rebecca assured them we'd work together to resolve everything fairly. Instead of blaming each other, we united against the real criminal. David. Police questioned him 2 weeks later. He denied everything. I had permission. Rebecca simply slid my passport across the table. The forged documents had supposedly been signed while I was attending a work conference in another state. Hotel records. Flight records. Conference registration. Security footage. Every piece of evidence proved I wasn't even home. His story collapsed instantly. Then another secret surfaced. The debts weren't from failed investments. They came from gambling. Sports betting. Online casinos. Private poker games. For nearly 4 years, David had secretly lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Every paycheck disappeared. Every bonus vanished. He borrowed from friends. Then banks. Then loan sharks. Finally, he targeted my inheritance. I couldn't believe the man I'd trusted had been living a completely different life. Every late meeting. Every weekend business trip. Every mysterious phone call. They weren't work. They were gambling. The husband I loved had never really existed. Only the version he wanted me to see. The court froze every dollar from the home sale before the money disappeared. That was our first victory. David had already spent nearly half the proceeds trying to repay dangerous lenders. Fortunately, investigators tracked several wire transfers. Most of the remaining funds were recovered. Months later, we finally entered the courtroom. David looked exhausted. Gone was the confident businessman. He looked older. Smaller. Broken. The prosecutor presented overwhelming evidence. Forged signatures. Bank transfers. Emails. Financial records. Witness testimony. There was nowhere left to hide. When the judge asked if he wished to change his plea, he quietly answered, "Guilty." I closed my eyes. Not because I felt happy. Because I finally felt free. The criminal case ended quickly. David received prison time for fraud, forgery, identity theft, and financial crimes. The civil court declared the home sale invalid. Legally, the house had never left my ownership. The buyers received their money back through insurance and recovered sale funds. No one blamed them. They'd trusted the paperwork. Just as I'd trusted my husband. Moving back into the house felt strange. For months it had carried memories of betrayal. I almost sold it myself. But one afternoon I discovered an old letter hidden inside my grandmother's sewing cabinet. It was addressed to me. If you're reading this, life probably became harder than either of us expected. Remember, this house isn't valuable because of its walls. It's valuable because it reminds you who you are. Never let anyone convince you your worth can be signed away on paper. I cried harder than I had at her funeral. That letter changed everything. Instead of leaving, I renovated the house. I restored the garden. Painted every room. Rebuilt the porch swing. Each improvement felt like reclaiming another piece of my life. Friends came over more often. Family visited again. Laughter slowly replaced silence. The house became a home once more. A year later, I received an unexpected letter. It was from David. He apologized. He admitted his addiction had destroyed everything. He asked if I'd forgive him. I folded the letter carefully. Then placed it inside a drawer. Forgiveness isn't something someone else earns. It's something you choose for your own peace. Maybe someday I'd forgive him. But forgiveness didn't mean reopening the door. Some chapters belong in the past. Today, When people ask how I survived losing nearly everything, I smile. The truth? I never lost everything. I lost someone who never truly valued me. What I kept was far more important. My dignity. My family's legacy. My grandmother's promise. And the strength to rebuild a life that no one could ever steal again. Every morning, I sit on that same front porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise over the garden my grandmother once loved. The house still stands, stronger than ever, just like I do. It reminds me that trust should never replace wisdom, and love should never require surrendering your identity. A signature can be forged, money can disappear, and people can betray you, but courage, resilience, and self-respect cannot be sold. Those are treasures no scam, no lie, and no dishonest husband will ever take away. And that is why this house will always remain my true home.